Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Learn with V, the virtual classroom. This is episode number 2, series number 1 of the new segment that I am introducing to you today, and I like to call it Explore the Word. By the way, hello, my name is V, and I am your virtual teacher for today's lesson. Now, I was thinking about what content should I create for my second episode, and I was lucky that a friend of mine, Coach Mackie, shout out to you, suggested that I should make a video about a particular word. And so I thought about it, and yeah, he's correct. A lot of people make mistakes whenever they use this word. And so I thought it'll be a lot helpful if I just create a video tutorial about it. And so for today, I'll be talking about that word. But before that, I also want to say thank you and shout out, merci beaucoup mon ami, my friend Andrew, for suggesting to me or recommending to me whiteboard. It's a lot fancy or more fancy than paint and sketchpad. There are more options and I'm loving it. It's colorful, vibrant, spacious, perfect. So thank you so much, merci beaucoup. Okay, now proceeding to the lesson itself, the word for today is this word. Let me write it down. It's irregardless. No judgment. That's the word that Mackie suggested that I should talk about. Now, before we conclude if this word is grammatical to use or not, let's first explore and dissect the specimen, shall we? Okay. Now, the word irregardless has a lot of aspects to it. You have the root word regard, and you have the affixes ir and less. Okay, now we call this the root word, and we call this the affixes. In more advanced terminologies, we actually refer to the root word as the free morpheme, because it could stand on its own and it has a meaning of its own. And then we call the affixes the bound morphemes, because they need a free morpheme to mean something. In the case of IR, yes, it's a bound morpheme, but in the case of less, it's sort of in between. Like it's a free morpheme, it could stand on its own, but it could function as a bound morpheme because it could be used as a suffix. So if you put a bound morpheme in the beginning of a word, you call it prefix, before, okay? And then if it is attached at the end of the word, you call it suffix. Okay, quick lesson on that. But before we talk about the suffixes and the prefixes and the affixes all together, let's concentrate first on our root word, which is regard. And so with regard to that, I'll be changing pen color. Now, the word regard may be used either as a verb or as a noun. Now, how do we weigh the difference between whether it be a verb or a noun? Now, it is a verb if you're using it to consider or to think of someone or something in a very specific or specified way. So, for example, the sentence is, she regards him as her mentor. Okay. Now, obviously, you have the singular version of the verb regards here, or regard here, because you have a singular subject. Now, if you missed out my first episode on subject-verb agreement, I suggest you go to YouTube, check on it, so you would know what verbs go with what subjects. All right. Now, anyway, obviously here you are telling the reader of the sentence that you are considering this person or this pronoun him to be your mentor should you happen to be she. That's how you use it as a verb. Now, if you want to use it as a noun, you mean now that you're putting attention to or concern for a particular something or someone. Like in the sentence, the meeting, excuse my handwriting, I'm trying to move as fast as I could. The meeting is in regard to the sales. Okay. Now, obviously, in this sentence, it's no longer the verb because you have the linking verb is, and now regard functions as a complement to the linking verb. And I would not like to talk about more on that because that would give me some space for new episodes. And so I tell you now that in this sentence, it doesn't function as a verb anymore, but so it functions as a noun. And obviously, when it is a noun, you actually kind of need to use some other words like prepositions in R2. And sometimes the most often used preposition if the word regard is used as a noun is either to or for. Okay, now that we settled that, there's another thing that I want to talk about. There's also the confusion about whether people would use regard or regards. Okay, now I've settled this already. Regard, you can use it whenever you want to mean that it is a verb or it is a noun. And I've shown you how in a very simple, straightforward way. Now let's talk about and focus on the word regards. It has nothing to do with the singular version regards in my first sentence. It just happens that it has its own version as regards if you mean that you want to say best wishes, greetings, hello, felicitations, good wishes to somebody every time you are writing, whether a letter, a snail mail, or an email. Okay, I'll repeat that. If you want to say greetings or best wishes to somebody, always use the version that has an S to it. Regards to your family. Oh, regards to your Lola. Oh, regards to him or her. It means hello to her, best wishes to him, yada, yada, yada. So whenever you're using the word regard in letters, unless of course it's part of the sentence and the structure of the paragraph, go ahead for regard. But if you mean you want to say hello, greetings, and best wishes, use the S form, regards. And don't forget the comma. Most people forget that comma. Okay, complimentary clause. More of that on the next episodes. Alright, now that we have that settled, let's talk about the word irregardless together with its affixes. I'll write it down again and I'll use my rainbow pen again because I'm enjoying this one. Irregardless. Like I said, it has multiple elements to it. We've just unlocked the root word. So now let's talk about the suffixes or the suffix and the prefixes. I switched both. Okay, now this is the prefix and this is the suffix. Like I said, this is a bound morpheme and this one is a 50-50. It could be a free morpheme, it could be a bound morpheme as well. Either way, these two mean the same. They mean without. Okay. When I was in college and probably in high school, I thought that the word irregardless is non-existent. Meaning to say, there's no such word. It's a made-up word. People just created it out of boredom. But based on my research, it actually has a dictionary entry. However, some linguists, some purists, or maybe most purists, would tell us that the word irregardless is still not a word and it is completely unacceptable in the English usage. Why? Because number one, it shows a double negative. Imagine you're saying without regard, without. You're using without twice to mean you don't care. Okay, another one is that you're committing redundancy. I mean, we get it the first time you say, you don't have to tell us twice. Irregardless according to some sources, is a word that exists in the dictionary, but to some purists and to some linguists, and to me, it isn't correct. Because the correct way really to say it, the technical, grammatical, absolutely correct way to say it is regardless. Not irregard, no. Not irregardless, okay? But just regardless. Stick to it. Now, V, why do you say it has a dictionary entry and now you're telling me you cannot use it? You mean to say it's in the dictionary, but it's not useful and correct? How did that happen? Well, to save the case here, it's acceptable when we talk about non-standard situations, or in layman's term, informal situations. If you're talking to your friends, if you're, chatting with your family, if you are making stories and telling stories to your nieces and nephews, go ahead, feel free. They're not grammar Nazis. Use irregardless, and you'll not be judged for it. But if the environment, if the situation is an academic, professional, formal context, therefore, by all means, may God guide you. Use regardless, because that way you sound professional, you sound learned, you sound educated, you are correct, and nobody will judge you in a world where there are a lot of people who easily judge other people. Yep, I'm part of that world. And so what I'm trying to say here, all kidding aside, is that irregardless, with all seriousness, some say it's okay, but only in informal situations. But technically speaking, it's not acceptable. You stick to regardless. So every time you find the itch in your body to blurt irregardless, think for a second, hold that tongue, bite that tongue, and think. Have a deep breath, take a deep breath. It's incorrect. I should just stick to regardless. Okay? And so having said that, let's summarize everything because I don't want to waste so much of your time with all my nonsense. So we have just discovered that the word irregardless in informal situations, it's acceptable. But in formal situations, you just have to stick with regardless. And then you have the prefix ir and you have the prefix less, which are both without. And so no to double negatives and no to redundancy. And then you have the root word regard. That could either be a verb or a noun. And then you have the version regards, which you use in letters or emails when you mean best wishes, greetings, or hellos. Okay, I hope that helped. And the next time you encounter the word, now you've gained power and knowledge, and I hope you will not commit the same mistake. Be better than yesterday. Thank you so much for listening. Much love, and I'll see you on to the next episode of Learn with V, the virtual classroom. Bye, everybody.